very prevalent for our generation, especially if we've been married for a long time. What happens when you just find yourself growing apart?
Did you push record?
Thanks for tuning in again to Our Second Act with Paige and Silka.
For your second active life. Hi again, Silka.
Hello, Paige. We've had some interesting discussions today, and you brought up a point off camera that we feel like is definitely worthy of a segment in and of itself, and that is very prevalent for our generation, especially if we've been married for a long time. What happens when you just find yourself growing apart? How do you deal with your relationship when it's just veered off in different directions?
Yeah, it's a big thing. And think about it. By the time you reach our age, if you've been together for a long time, we change, we grow. Circumstances in our life change us, stressors change us, kids change us, traumas change us. And if you have two people in a relationship and one person has gone through just a lot of life, challenges, more so than the other person, that really, there's an introspection that goes on, or there's a denial that goes on, or there's an avoidance, but stuff goes on, and it can change your belief system. It can change your thoughts. It can change how you feel emotionally, and that has a direct effect on the other person. So that's one area as to how people change. And, oftentimes I hear, I'm growing, I'm working on myself, I'm living life, and my significant other just is not. And I kind of equate it to, have you graduated and you've gotten a PhD and they're still in kindergarten? Is that what it feels like? And a lot of times my clients are like, yes, that's what it feels like. And we're not talking academics at all. This is just an analogy. We're just talking that someone's really growing spiritually, emotionally, however that looks to them, but their partner just isn't, or doesn't want to, doesn't know how to. For whatever reason, that's a really tough place to be. Or maybe you both started out being very athletic, wanting to do things outdoors, and you were, loved being in nature, but something happened along the way, and the one person, maybe broke their foot or starting to have, type of allergies outside, or whatever it is.
Back issues.
Back issues, yeah. Or things that kind of stop them from doing that outdoor thing. Then you kind of go, now where are we? It's all about reestablishing, and each time where you were in your 20s is very different than where you are in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and on. What you could do with your 20s is very different now. And when two people, one person might be able to do things physically, mentally, emotionally, still now, and the other person just can't. So where do you go?
Yeah. Well, how do you deal with that?
Where
do you?
It's what I always say, there has to be discussion, because you always know in a relationship who's growing, who's not, who doesn't want to grow, who's afraid to grow, what combined activities have changed now that the other person feels left out. Again, it goes back to that emotional piece. How is someone feeling left out, not nurtured, not being heard with their needs? You have to talk about, hey, why aren't we hiking anymore? Okay, what can we do that takes the place of hiking? What can we do together? And that's why it's so important as individuals in a relationship. Both people need to find what feeds them, because you're not going to get everything from your significant other. So start to do things that work for you outside of being together, whether you join a club or you're doing hiking with the club or whatever it might be, and then talk with your significant other about, hey, what if we try this? What if we at age 55 want to look at this now? We've never thought about this. It's brainstorming ideas that are bringing you together and hearing both people's needs, both people's feelings, both people's thoughts about what they want to try, what they want to do, what's stopping them, what's being fearful of them, how they can be helped. Again, it always comes back to you have to speak up and you have to articulate, what you need, how you need it, and come together to compromise, but not compromise yourself, and figure out, what's our next step. Because it could be fun, it could be adventuresome, it could be really neat. Hey, we've never done this before. This is a great new adventure. So it's not always, oh God, what are we going to do next? This is not going to be. There's so many different things that can happen that are even better than when you first got together as a couple.
Right. Well, and again, it's something that is more and more prevalent the older we get. Again, crossing that 50 mark. I say that all the time. Is
Mm-hmm.
there are awakenings, and you do develop different ideas, and or interests, and you have changed. Purpose and passion becomes more important to you. As I'm hearing you, explain this, and for people watching that are in that position, that yeah, we've just totally grown apart. We just have different lives. I mean, sometimes saving it or staying within that relationship isn't maybe the best option for both of you, is it?
It's individual. Only the two people can decide, and that's why I always say you have to talk to each other about, hey, I'm noticing that I'm doing my thing, you're doing your thing, but there's no thing with us. What's missing? What can we start to do together? What can we try that's new? What's a new adventure that we can take? And sometimes I see one person compromising and sacrificing themselves for everything the other person wants to do, and that fractures them. So if there's something that you want to do that's going to feed you, go do it. Because sometimes when you do it, you come back, you don't have that neediness anymore with that other person because you're getting your needs met. Yet at the same time, we're talking about when one person is growing and the other person stays stuck. You kind of have to decide and look at, what does that look like? How are you growing and they're not? Is the way that you're growing and they're not growing really affecting you personally and affecting the relationship to the point that you're not sure, are we still going to be able to stay together? And that can only be figured out by both people talking about it, breaking it down, processing it, and figuring out, what are the dynamics? Why are we here? What do we want to do? Is one person done and they're finished? Or is it just a matter of, hey, let's come back together again. We've gotten a little further apart. Let's do some things. Let's decide to be committed to, what's one thing you want to do? I'll try it. What's one thing you want to do? I'll try it. Hey, we've now found some things that we actually like doing together, and that's all you need. So it's different for each person. It's different for each relationship.
Well, another great point, and you said something, the whole togetherness. Like for me personally, that's really important. For me, if you're in a relationship, that means being together. And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's where I come from. I have friends that have been, long-term relationships, or, go separate vacations, doing different things, to where I feel like they're living different lives, but they seem to be really happy. So I by no means mean to imply that, you need to be glued to each other's hips in order, for the relationship to be, quote, happy. Happiness comes in many different forms. So I wanted to make sure that I kind of threw that out.
I'm glad you brought that up, because the big thing that I see is we live in a world where there are societal norms. And, I have a client right now that they're actually talking about wanting to live in different homes, but staying together for various reasons that I won't go into. And, I had said to them, here's my belief system. We are living in a society that humans say, you have to do it this way, the relationship has to look like this, and if you don't do it this way, taboo, that's not good. And I'm all about, remember, we're souls living in a human body, and whatever's working, that works for your relationship, that's healthy, that doesn't hurt one another, but brings you together, that works for you, define what works for you. You do not have to define what society says has to work for you. Big point.
Right, right. So I was going to ask you if that was, if you had another point. That was a great one. So, these relationship topics are important. They're on everybody's mind. We do think about them a lot. Please leave us your questions, comments. If there's, specific topics that you would like us to cover, either send us, go to our suggestion box on the website, or leave your comments. We'd love to hear from you. And Paige, we'll see you next time on Our Second Act with Paige and Silka.
For your second act of life.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for watching. For more love and relationship advice after 50, please visit our website, secondact.tv. And if you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. Button's right over here. See you next time. Bye-bye.